Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a Books Beside My Bed video where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. This was an odd sort of reading week. I actually have mostly children's and middle fiction review titles and then just some random books that I picked up throughout the week, and I was aiming for the most part, short and quick and to the point kind of stories that I knew I was going to enjoy because I was really tired this week and I wanted to read, I just didn't know what to read, so I had to keep things really simple. So as always, we will start off with review titles first and then go into sort of the adult titles that I read, so timestamps are all down below. I had 3 review titles from Alan and Unwin, so thank you very much to them for sending them to me. The first one being How to Measure the Ocean by Inda Ahmed Zari, and I read Inda Ahmed Zari's previously released book, which was absolutely gorgeous, and I was so excited to see this one because it has a very intriguing concept. So this is talking about how do you measure the ocean, something that's really vast and big and kind of unknowable at times, and it's about how to problem solve how you are going to measure things, and it is a really great analogy for how you measure and problem solve and work your way through big feelings and emotions. So there's this really lovely double layer to the book. If you just read it purely at a surface level, it is an absolutely gorgeous book about a love of math and the ocean, but of course you do have that deeper layer of meaning, which is really, really lovely as well. So I thoroughly enjoyed this one. It has gorgeous illustrations and a really beautiful message. I also read the 4th book in the Smarty Pup series, which is called Talent Quest. This is a full color early chapter book for sort of end of junior fiction age group into early middle fiction readers, and we follow JJ, who is a dog who has received the ability to talk and a genius IQ as a result of some space goo falling on him. And he and his owner Lily go to school together, and in this book they are trying to purchase a birthday gift for Dad. They want to get him a new drill because Dad is constantly building things for them and doing things to help them out, and JJ especially wants to get this drill, and Lily and JJ don't have enough money for that, so they enter a talent quest. But because JJ is so smart, it kind of precludes them from participating in a lot of the categories, and so they have to get really clever about it. This series is just so fun and so lovely. It has a really strong thread of friendship, of problem solving, of playing to your strengths, but also not being afraid to try new things. So it's a really, really wonderful series. It's probably my favorite of Anh Doh's ongoing work. Then we have Brave Kāhu and the Pōrangi Magpie. This is by Shelley Burnfield. This, alongside Talent Quest, are also review copies from Alan and Unwin. I forgot to say that at the start. This is a book that is coming out of Alan and Unwin, New Zealand, which was really exciting to read. And it is the story of Poto, who loses her mother to some magpies. And I'm probably mispronouncing the traditional name, so I deeply apologize for that. But the Kāhu are swamp harrier hawks, and the magpies that are referred to, there is a mad magpie. And Poto is hunting with her sister, and they find out that their mother has been killed and that their younger brother has been injured. And alongside some of the other animals in the New Zealand bush, they are trying to find a way to defeat the magpie, who are invading their homeland after being exiled many years earlier because they were so violent. It is about Poto realizing that she is brave and can stand up to the magpies, and also recognizing that she is leading a group of animals. She is now sort of the head figure in her family, and it's about bravery and courage and trying to do the right thing. So it was really lovely, and I believe the author Shelley Burnfield is of both Samoan and possibly Maori descent. So it's a First Nations book as well, which is really lovely, and I really appreciated that there is a very in-depth glossary at the back of the book because there are a lot of traditional names used for things, which I think is really cool. And then a couple of kids titles that I'm going to mention that aren't review titles. Just really briefly, I read Real Pigeons Flap Out. This is book 11 in the Real Pigeons series. This is by Andrew McDonald and Ben Wood. This book was shortlisted for the Children's Book Council Awards in the younger readers category. I kind of understand that. I also don't understand it. These stories are really fun and a bit silly at times, and in this case all of the pigeons get caught up in a bunch of adventures, including one where a mysterious lookalike pigeon turns up causing havoc, and it's up to the real pigeons to figure out what's going on and to stop this evil imposter. I read this book because I'm reading through the shortlist titles, so this was the fastest one to get through this week. And then a non-fiction kids book that I read was Lost: Uncovering Vanishing Wonders by Jess McGeachin. This is part of her series of non-fiction books, which are absolutely gorgeous. I read Deep last year because it was shortlisted. So there's Lost, and I also have another one called High. This is a non-fiction book all about lost things. So lost worlds, lost cities, lost sea, lost in the wild, lost forever, and lost and found. And each section begins with sort of an introduction into the category, and then you begin to explore this category. So there's a bit of a general description and then little bits of information about things that might have been lost in this time period. So like lost worlds, dinosaurs, traveling through time and seeing how things have evolved since things have been lost as well, which is really cool. But the format of this book and the way that it's broken up into sections makes it really interesting. You can kind of dip in and out of it as you need to, but it is a really, really great book. I really loved Deep last year, and I'm looking forward to exploring High. I do have it, and I just haven't had time to read it yet, but Jess McGeachin's nonfiction is fantastic. All right, then we move into the adult titles that I read this week. So I read Can't Text This by Teagan Hunter, which is part of the texting series, which was one of the series that I needed to read for 2024. And I am going to say I read this book and I DNF'd the 4th book. So I'm finished with that series because I read 3 out of the 4 books. So Can't Text This is about Robbie and Monty, and Robbie is a single dad. He has a 7-year-old son, Xavier, who he's raising, and Robbie and Monty have this hookup in a bar. And it is totally unlike Monty. She is very straight-laced. She has been raised in a very conservative household, and so she has these preconceived notions. She's a virgin heroine, and this is very much an opposites attract kind of book. I thought this one was, it was okay. Most of these tropes are things that I'm not really big on. I'm not big on the conservative virgin heroine kind of trope. I love the single dad trope, and I thought Robbie's character was really interesting, and I liked Monty. I just didn't like the way that we just drew out her storyline and the way that she doesn't communicate a few things. I don't feel like you ever owe anyone information about yourself, but I feel like there are certain times where you might want to just have a conversation with them, because Monty is doing his best to try and win her over. Like, he is head over heels gone for her. She just doesn't know what she wants at this point in time, and that is not my favorite thing. So this one was just fine, and then I realized that the 4th book has the main male character who did something in the 1st book that I don't know how you can, I don't know if we would have got enough of a redemption storyline in book 4, and I just had to put it down. I'm finished with the texting series. I really enjoyed the first couple of books. I still think that the Carolina Comet series is just top notch from Teagan Hunter. Then I picked up Playing by Her Rules by Amy Andrews. This is one of the books that I'm now reading for my 2nd round of Shelf Destruct books. This is from my rare TBR. Amy Andrews is an Australian author, and this is book 1 in her Sydney Smoke rugby series. Look at me reading a rugby book. Speaking of my love of glossaries in books, there's rugby and Australianism terms in here for anyone who needs them, which that made me laugh. So this is a second chance romance between Tanner and Matilda. They knew each other in high school. They were high school sweethearts. Tanner always knew that he was going to try and make a go of it with rugby, and Matilda got a scholarship to Stanford to study journalism. 18-year-old Tanner thought it would be a really great idea to kiss another girl in front of her in order to make her realize that she can't hang around here waiting for her and she needs to go follow her dreams. So questionable motives, but 18-year-old boy. Matilda, however, has not been able to move on from that, and when she is given the job and basically told it's this or you basically get demoted, that you have to go and do a 6-part series on Tanner, who has one of the squeakiest clean images of all of the football players in rugby union in Australia. She is reluctant, and she sets out kind of with the mission to see if she can kind of prove that he is not as squeaky clean cut as everyone thinks he is, because she knows differently. He is just thrilled to see her again, and he has been following her career and cheering her on in the background, and while he doesn't want to be followed around by a reporter, he loves that it's her and is determined to win her over. It is a bit of him having to redeem himself, and she rightfully gets mad when he reveals, what he did in the past, and fair enough. I was actually really pleasantly surprised by this one. I thought, I knew I would enjoy it, but I had a great time reading this. It was just very, very readable, and a really great, short, easy read that didn't require a lot of thinking and just let me go with the flow of the book, which I loved. I also read Puppucino, which is Bold Brew book number 2 by Allison Temple. This was the oldest Kāhu title on my TBR at the start of the month, so I just thought I would read it straight away because why not? And it is a really fun little story. It is an romance. It's also, all of the books in the series are centered around this little cafe called Bold Brew that also has kink classes that run in a sort of another room on different nights. In this one, we are following Charlie, who has a husky puppy who is basically destroying his house. He got the puppy when he and his former partner were still together and thought that it could be they could raise the dog together, and then that relationship fell apart really badly. Now he's left with this 9-month-old puppy who just destroys everything. And he ends up enlisting the help of Mason, who is a dog trainer who had put a flyer up in Bold Brew. They meet for this one-off opportunity just to see how they get along. And Mason, who is a little bit older and very much a dom, has to walk away from the situation because he sees how Charlie responds to praise and to being told what to do, and recognizes that, you know, this could go sideways. And then eventually they, you know, they decide, okay, well, maybe we'll try this dog trainer relationship kind of thing that's going on, and kind of fall into a relationship themselves, and one that Charlie wants to keep very low key and low strings or no strings attached kind of relationship, because he was so badly burnt by his previous partner, who was also a dom, but very much a bad dom. And I don't like calling people bad things, but he wasn't good. He definitely pushed Charlie's buttons and then gaslit him into making him feel like that he had to go further than he felt comfortable with, which is something that Mason rapidly works out and has to support Charlie in working through sort of that aspect of it, because Mason is not a bad dom. He recognizes when Charlie is uncomfortable, when he's lying about being uncomfortable, and tries to get to the bottom of it. So I thought this was a really good exploration of that dom-sub relationship and the power dynamics and the trust that you have to have in people and what happens when that trust breaks down. I also love that Charlie is an author who is writing a dragon fantasy book, but he also writes copy edits for porn. And that was a hilarious little side plot in the story. So I had a lot of fun with that book. And then finally, I read The Fox God by L.L. Frost. This is book 3 in the Demonic Messes and Other Annoyances series, which follows a polyamorous group of magical beings, including fire witches and necromancers and phoenixes and fae. And look, this was quite long and there was a lot of kind of different side stories that were going on in the background, but honestly, it's just a really comforting read because I know exactly what I'm going to get. It's not high literature. It's not something that requires me to know a lot about the content or the world to get into it. It's very much an urban fantasy paranormal story with a romance subplot in it, following these 4 characters. And at the start of this book, one of the members of this family is separate because he is possessed by a fire demon, and everyone else is a little bit mad at the fire demon at the moment. So it's about them trying to come back together. There's a whole lot of other things going on in the background because one of them is in charge of the police force's supernatural division, so they get called out to investigate all sorts of things. The others are cleaners whose basic job is to go out and clean up demonic messes. And alongside all of this, one of them has picked up a familiar, which is the former messenger of the fox god. And the fox god is very unhappy that one of its creatures has abandoned it and is basically demanding reparations in the form of a sacrifice. And so everything is just happening. Like, there's just a lot going on, and you just read it and you just accept it and you keep going. It's 100% not the best written thing ever, but that doesn't make any difference to my enjoyment level because I love the characters, because I love how messy it is, and I was a little bit heartbroken at the end of this book because there is a sacrifice and it made me a bit sad. And for anyone who has read it, you'll know that there are things going on with this sacrifice, but I need to read book 4. Book 6 came out at the end of last month, so hopefully in the next couple of months I'll be able to read the next 3 books and then I'll be finished with this series. So I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. All right, my friends, those are all the things that I have read this week. In the comments, I'd love to know if you've read any of them or if you're planning on picking any of them up. Feel free to share your thoughts on them or any other books that you have been reading this week down below. If you don't want to leave a comment but you want to let me know that you're here, feel free to leave a fox emoji down below. Otherwise, I hope wherever you're on the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.